The 2026 NFL Scouting Combine is here. Prospects, coaches, GMs, analysts, we'll talk to them all week long. Plus, there'll be plenty of conversation about Maxx Crosby. We get you ready for all of that, plus more on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for Monday, February 23rd, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. We're definitely very proud of that. We're also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day by way of the YouTube page. No matter where we are, coast to coast, my man Ari definitely holds it down. As you can tell if you're watching on YouTube right now, I'm definitely not in Studio Q. I'm in Indianapolis. I'll tell you all about that coming up in a hot minute, but definitely shout out to Ari. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. As we normally do, we'll close out the show hearing from you, calls, texts, a lot of really good feedback off of all the conversation that we've been having here over the last couple of weeks. So we'll get as many in as possible as we close things out. Segment number 2, you'll hear from Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network. You heard from him on Friday's show. Get a little bit more just to kind of, like I said, get you ready for the Scouting Combine. This week is one of my favorite weeks of the year, being here in Indianapolis, just because I know the draft process really, it's all year long, but it really begins this week officially. So if the draft is your thing, and of course the draft should be your thing with the Raiders having the number one overall pick, not that it's a big surprise of where they're going to go, this is really when it all gets started, and that's coming up this week. So we're excited about that. We'll hear from Daniel Jeremiah coming up in segment number 2. Segment number 1, just news and notes as we always do, and we'll go ahead and jump into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Use your profit boost on the NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So as I mentioned, I'm definitely not in Studio Q, not in Las Vegas, in Indianapolis, a very cold Indianapolis. Boy, there's a big difference from being in Vegas and being here in Indy. Man, I'll tell you, got on the plane. I want to say the temperature was probably 60-something, maybe even close to 70 in Las Vegas. Got off the plane, it was 25. You want to talk about a culture shock. I was like, good God, it's cold. But it was, and it is. And there's a lot of snow all over the place, not snow on the road, so it was pretty easy to get the rental car to the Airbnb where I'm at right now. And this will probably be my Studio Q for the next week. I'll be at the Indiana Convention Center throughout the course of the day. I'll do my local radio show on Raider Nation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness. I'll do that from the convention center. That's where all the podium action will be. That's where you get to run into coaches and GMs and analysts and have a lot of great guests. It won't be quite like the Super Bowl, but it's like Super Bowl light, right? So it's not as busy as the Super Bowl, but it's still kind of got that same action. But the difference is Radio Row at the Super Bowl is open 24 hours, 24/7. Like the whole week is just open. So no matter what time you want to go in there, you can. Here at the Indiana Convention Center, they normally want you to get out around 8 o'clock Eastern time. So my local radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, wraps up around 8 o'clock Eastern time each and every day. So they're probably going to want me to get up out of there about 8:30. So I'll hustle to the Airbnb where I'm at right now, and I'll do my ESPN show game night and then knock out the podcast from here as well. It's for the most part, it's pretty good. It's accessible. It's a little bit hollow because there's no carpet, but we'll do the best that we can throughout the course of the week. But I'm very excited for the opportunity to be here and being able to bring you everything I can Raiders related all week long. Now, I did want to give you a couple updates real quick. On Sunday, the Raiders did continue to add to Klint Kubiak's coaching staff, and for the most part, it's pretty much set in stone. There's a couple more positions that need to be filled, and now their offensive run game coordinator has been filled as they decided to go ahead and hire Mario Jabril, and I believe that's how you say his last name. I'm going to have to double check because I don't want to go saying his name wrong, but he is the offensive run game coordinator. He's actually a Las Vegas native. He graduated from the University of Nevada. He played on the Rebels offensive line from 2004 and 2004 to 2008. So there you go, UNLV through and through. And now, I know that he didn't play at Allegiant Stadium for playing for UNLV, but that's kind of cool that UNLV plays at Allegiant Stadium, and now he's going to be coaching at Allegiant Stadium. But he enters his 6th season coaching in the NFL, joins the Raiders after the last 2 seasons with the Jaguars, spent the 2025 season as the defensive assistant for a unit that ranked as high as the league's #1 run defense, allowing just 85.7 6 rushing yards per game. The Jaguars finished with the most passes defense and second most interceptions in the NFL last season. And so now he flips over to the other side of the ball, and he's going to be the offensive run game coordinator. He's got a lot of familiarity going all the way back to Kansas with Klint Kubiak. So, again, it's just one of those things. He's one of those coaches, kind of like what Lincoln Kennedy said before. These coaches, you can kind of, they're by title on paper, but I mean, really, they just are able to man a certain position, man a certain group, and be able to lead them, and that's going to be the ultimate goal. So there you go. Mario Jubbereel is now the offensive run game quarter. Still, a quarterback coach needs to be had, and the Raiders will be pretty much set. We will talk to GM John Spytek on Tuesday. He'll be at the podium on Tuesday, but we'll get him off to the side. If you've been rocking with this show for a while, you know what that's like. We get to go either in a room or we get to go to another table, and just the local media, the ones that cover the Raiders on the daily, we get to kind of pepper them, kind of a little Q&A with them for probably about 45 minutes to an hour, whatever the case may be. So I'll bring you some of that really good stuff. That'll be on Tuesday, and then Klint Kubiak will have that same opportunity, but we'll do that on Wednesday from one of the hotels here in Indianapolis. So again, it's really a blessing to be able to have that, that the local media feel and be able to get a little bit of sit down time with the head coach and just basically pepper him with any kind of questions from obviously the upcoming draft to just the team in general. And of course, there'll be plenty of Maxx Crosby conversation as well. You can guarantee that. We also found out on Saturday, I think it was Saturday, it was over the weekend, Adam Schefter from ESPN tweeted out that Fernando Mendoza, projected number 1 overall pick, Fernando Mendoza will not throw at the Combine this week per source. He will throw at Indiana's Pro Day on April 1st when the school has multiple pass catchers that Mendoza wants to help showcase. So not a big surprise. I quote tweeted it and said there's no reason for him to throw here in Indianapolis. And for the most part, these top guys haven't been doing that anyway, so there was no big surprise when I read that tweet from Adam Schefter. But it's just one of those, the reality is there's nothing he could do to better himself. He's already going to be the number 1 guy selected off the board. So if there was any kind of bad throws or anything didn't look quite right, this is the time of year when everyone's trying to tear guys down anyway. There's nothing he could do to help his stock. All he's going to do is hurt it. So really no reason for him to throw at the Combine. It'll be about the medicals. It'll be about the interview. It'll be about the podium. That'll be fun. When it comes to Fernando Mendoza, obviously he'll meet with the Raiders. He'll meet with some other teams as well. And then, when he's throwing at his pro day, that's cool, right? I mean, you got Omar Cooper, who's a wide receiver that I'm very interested in. Elijah Surratt, another wide receiver that I'm very interested in. Plus, there'll be so many scouts and folks there just to watch him that they'll be able to showcase all the players from Indiana that are entering the draft. And I'll never forget when RG3 was having his pro day, and we all knew he was going to go number 2 overall to Washington. That was the year that Andrew Luck went number 1 to the Colts. Everyone knew that he was going to go number 2, but when I went over to Baylor for the pro day, there was every single team was represented there. NFL team was represented. So there was other guys on those Baylor teams that had an opportunity to showcase themselves in front of the coaches and staffs as well. And so that's really good. And it's good to see that Fernando Mendoza will be throwing at his pro day to at least try to help some of his guys along and encourage those guys that are also entering the NFL draft. But let's get you ready for the Scouting Combine. We heard from Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network. We heard from him on Friday's show. Like I said, he had a 2-hour-long the conference call that I thought was great. So you'll hear a few more sound bites coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. We'll do that next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors we have here on the show, and that is TurboTax Full Service. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. And they'll handle everything from W-2s and self-employed forms and work to get every single deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. You look at the calendar, that's only a handful of days away. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get you all things ready for the scouting combine that is this week in Indianapolis. Very cold Indianapolis. This is always a week that's challenging for me. Let's just put it like that. I never seem to come back healthy from this thing because it is always just so cold. And last year wasn't too cold, though. But the year before, man, it was brutal. And this year, it feels like it's going to be pretty cold as well. The other cool thing is I got this Airbnb. I got the same exact one last time I was here. So apparently I always go to everything that I know, and that even means Airbnbs as well. So if you've been rocking with me for a few years now on this show, you'll probably recognize the same spot that I'm in right now. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get you ready for the scouting combine by hearing from some Daniel Jeremiah from some of his thoughts from Thursday's 2-hour-long conference call that he had. And the first one was a good one that Ryan McFadden asked this question from ESPN. He covers the Raiders for us locally in Las Vegas as well. Does a really good job. Matter of fact, he took over for Paul Gutierrez. But he asked the question about the relationship between Mendoza and Kubiak, that marriage. Last time the Raiders had a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach, it was 2007 when they had the number 1 overall pick and they selected Jamarcus Russell. And remember who their head coach was? Lane Kiffin. So they were both new. So he was asked, Daniel Jeremiah was asked by Ryan if this marriage between Mendoza and Kubiak, if he thought it was going to work out better than Russell and Kiffin.
Well, I definitely think it can work. And when you look at what he does, some of the movement stuff, the under center, moving the quarterback around a little bit, Mendoza's fully capable of doing that. He's got a strong arm to be able to, throw the deep over routes and the different, things you want to do within that system. I don't think there's any limitations there, but I think the most important thing is, and not just specific to Jamarcus Russell, but I would say Jamarcus Russell's decision making was troublesome in a lot of different areas. It didn't work out for him. Mendoza to me is an excellent decision maker, and where Russell is as talented a thrower as I've ever evaluated ever. I've never seen anybody throw the football like he did. Right. To me, Mendoza is going to operate within the structure of this offense very well, and he's going to make really, really good decisions. So I think that's got a chance to really, really work out. And he's also, however much volume you want to put on him, he can swallow a lot of volume as well. He's an incredibly bright kid. So I think he was offered to Yale in football. So he's got a chance to be a really good player there, and I like that marriage with the coach and the quarterback.
So yeah, I just think that one, Russell wasn't going to work with anybody. That's kind of a no-brainer. Jamarcus, once he got to the league and got his paycheck, he was done. He wasn't going to just be that guy. I mean, he didn't have the work ethic. Fernando Mendoza is completely different. He's got the work ethic. He loves football. Klint Kubiak's been around the game for a very long time. He's nothing like Lane Kiffin. I mean, those two kind of comparisons couldn't be more polar opposite. But, I mean, I get why the question was asked because, again, it was the last time the Raiders had the number 1 overall pick. They ended up having a rookie quarterback or head coach at the same time in Lane Kiffin. So really good question, but, yeah, totally different, right? Lane Kiffin, totally different than Klint Kubiak is, and Jamarcus Russell and Fernando Mendoza are definitely nothing similar. Also, something I've been talking about quite a bit is starts when it comes to quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza has plenty of them, right? He played at Cal and obviously played at Indiana, but he's got like 35 starts under his belt. Well, these scouts and talent evaluators, they're looking for quarterbacks to have probably at least like 20, 25 starts in college. And so the question was asked about why starts matter again for quarterbacks so much, and also does that apply for offensive linemen? Here's Daniel Jeremiah responding to that.
Well, it's always just going to make you feel more comfortable, when you have more starts, to just more evaluate. And I remember back in the day, we used to make a big deal about, I think it was when I was in Baltimore, and we had drafted Tony Pashos. This is a bazillion years ago. I think he was out of Illinois. And we took him late, and he was big, and he was a little bit stiff, but he had started a zillion games in the Big Ten. And we were like, guys that start a million games along the offensive line in the Big Ten, they just seem to stick. They're tough, they're smart. They kind of work around whatever deficiencies they may have. So we used to always, point to that with the offensive line. With quarterbacks, I think it's always been important, but I think the difference now is because you're not paying these guys as much as we were in the previous era. Going back to like the Stafford, Bradford era, that teams now are quicker to move on. That there's look at all the look at all the conversation around JJ McCarthy that's taken place already this off season. Like it feels like he's barely got on the field, but people are like, okay, we gotta, we could move in another direction. You couldn't do that because of salary implications in years past. Now it's like no harm, no foul. If it doesn't work out, you just go back and get another one. So you want him when they get there. What I'm getting at is you're not going to be able to have a lot of time to develop them. So you need a lot of that development to have taken place at the college level. And, like the Joe Burrow you saw at Ohio State, even the Joe Burrow you saw his first year at LSU was not the Joe Burrow you saw his final year. The Bo Nix you saw at Auburn was not the Bo Nix that we saw at Oregon. I can go on and on. Jalen Hurts from Alabama to Oklahoma. Like these guys all benefited from getting all that work. And then on the flip side, obviously McCarthy didn't play a ton. You look at Trey Lance, who did not have a ton of experience there. So we've seen some guys who haven't worked out. So I think it's kind of all those things together of why you care. And I've mentioned this before, but for all the the issues that have popped up in college football and a lot of complaints with how things have changed and NIL and the transfer portal, what doesn't get discussed at all, and I think is a massive deal from the scouting standpoint, is the realignment that took place. If you're watching a quarterback in the SEC or the Big Ten, you're watching him against elite competition, five or six times during the regular season. And if they make a postseason run, you might get 2, 3, 4 more games of that. So the more you can see of a player, the more comfortable you're going to be with who he is and the more confident you'll be in your evaluation. So that's kind of where that comes from. And now with Ty, there's the first 6 or 7 games, he was excellent, making good decisions, accurate layer throws, processing so well. And then whether it was a combination of injuries, no running game, the offensive line not being great, but he didn't play well coming down the stretch. So when you see that, you don't have another 3 or 4 years worth of good tape to forgive that and to be comfortable with it. It's kind of like, well, gosh, I'm getting ready to take the guy in the first round, and I've only seen really 7, really, really good games. That's where teams get a little bit nervous.
So there's Daniel Jeremiah just talking about starts for quarterbacks, starts for offensive linemen, and how that, it does make sense, and it goes hand in hand. And, of course, the more that you get in college, the more opportunities and reps that you get in college, the better chance you'll have to be able to translate that to the National Football League. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the Raiders and their offensive line. Daniel Jeremiah was asked a really good question about centers in particular. Who could start on day one from this class of offensive linemen?
There's a lot of jobs that are great. I love my job, but if I could switch jobs for just the next couple months, I'd want to be Tyler Linderbaum's agent, because everybody that I talk to seems to be in on Tyler Linderbaum. So it sounds like he's going to have a robust market. Congratulations to him and his family. Look, there's some good guys, some like 3rd round type players. And there's guys that are interior players with, like, where would you have some experience there? But look, Sam Hecht from Kansas State, I think, can start day one. He probably goes in the late 2nd, early 3rd round range. Jake Slaughter from Florida, I think, would have a chance as a 3rd round pick to come in and get on the field right away. Trey Zune played primarily, left tackle, but has some center experience at A&M. Maybe that takes a little while, but he's graded for me in that same range. There's guys who'd have a chance to play pretty early. So I think there's a decent group of centers there. I don't know that there's one that I would, jump on the table for to take, in the 2nd round, maybe a little bit of a reach there. But I think you can get one of those guys at that point in time, or you can trade back, whatever you want to do there. But I think those guys that I mentioned all have a chance to start.
Really good question, and I thought it was a really good answer, especially when you hear Daniel Jeremiah talk about Tyler Linderbaum. He's going to have such a huge market. Obviously, the Raiders should be interested in him. We've talked about him plenty of times, right? He's going to be the guy that's going to break the bank as far as I'm concerned, if he's able to get out of Baltimore. There's a chance that he doesn't even get out of Baltimore, but you hear what DJ had to say about, man, I need to be his agent, right? I don't have to have his job for very long, but it's going to be great to be his agent because, man, he's going to have so many suitors at that center position. But if the Raiders ain't able to get him and they decide that they don't want to put JPJ at the center position, there are some centers right there from Daniel Jeremiah that maybe they'll be interested in later on in the draft that they feel would be comfortable starting day one. The final soundbite I want you to hear from Daniel Jeremiah from his 2-hour-long conference call that he had on Thursday is about the top corners. Cornerback is a position that the Raiders definitely need to address. I do believe that they'll re-sign Eric Stokes, or at least attempt to re-sign Eric Stokes, but Darian Porter's still a work in progress, and they really don't have too many answers at the corner position. So here's Daniel Jeremiah on the characteristics of the top corners in this class.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got guys do different things. There's some real versatility there. And I've had a lot of conversations with teams about, okay, I love this player. How do we use him? And that's where the challenge comes in. And we've got a lot of new coaches that have moved around the league. So I think that's going to be kind of a key in this draft is those guys getting together with the personnel department and having a plan for these guys when they bring them in. But you've got outside, some pure outside guys like at the top with Delane from LSU, McCoy, who was awesome in 24 before the injury, missing this year. Both those guys have really, really good, body control. They're fluid. They stay connected. They can play the ball. Really, really complete players. Hood, I think, is I pulled him down my list a little bit, but he's still a really good player, bottom one. And you've got Cisse from South Carolina, who's going to run blazing fast and is a really talented player. But the nickels to me, like Avian Terrell from Clemson, Keontae Scott, who I think is going to play in there, Kilgore from South Carolina, D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. Like all those guys are, they're all like second, maybe you get one of those guys drifts into the third. I'd put Keith Abney from Arizona State just behind them. It's a really, really good group of those guys that can, day one nickels. And then, of all those guys, the names that you mentioned, I go back to it a little bit. I'm pretty fired up about McNeil Warren, just with, the things he can do and the physicality and the size that he has.
There you go. D'Angelo Pons is a guy that I think is a hell of a player from Indiana. And it's funny, man, when you start to see, and you start paying attention to Fernando Mendoza and you're starting to focus in on Indiana and they go on this playoff run, you start to see how many great players they really had, right? How their, offensive line was set up, how their running game was set up, obviously the quarterback, their wide receivers. Then you start seeing some dudes on defense that are shining, right? The more you pay attention, the more you understand why that team went undefeated and Fernando Mendoza earned the Heisman Trophy award as well. So hopefully that'll get you ready for this week's Scouting Combine. I'm already ready for it here in Indianapolis. Very excited about it. But your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. And here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. So if you're already looking at the board, thinking about what team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock in. Is it the Thunder? Is it the Spurs? Are you looking at the Celtics without Jason Tatum? Are you looking at the Pistons with Cade Cunningham? Maybe you're looking at the Knicks. Futures is great this time of year. Whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title, it adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it can also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to thank you so much for making this the first listen of the day. Let's go ahead and start things off with a call from Caden in Wisconsin. He's calling to talk about a player in a real position of need and wants us to all keep our eyes and ears open for. Here's Caden in Wisconsin.
What's good, Q? What's good, Ari? This is Caden calling from Wisconsin. I want to talk about some prospects, not a prospects, but just one prospect. I remember, and I can't believe it's already been a year, but I remember when Raider Educator last year brought up Schlesinger, the linebacker. I believe the Browns have him now. But hell of a linebacker. I think we need to get a linebacker as well this draft, and I think Anthony Hill Jr., although he's not kind of like the same type of linebacker as Schlesinger, I think Anthony Hill is a sideline-to-sideline player. I'm guessing you watched a lot of him at Texas too. So yeah, I think you should ask around maybe about Anthony Hill Jr. and maybe where he could fall. I've seen mock drafts of him falling to the second round. I've seen some teams get him in the first round for that fifth-year option. So I'm just curious, and I think that's a player we should look into for sure. Take care, the Raiders.
Caden, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Anthony Hill Jr., that's a good one for sure, right? There's a lot of folks that believe he's the best linebacker in the draft. I saw some Bears fans talking about he's the next Urlacher. Now, that's a Hall of Famer, so I'm not going to go ahead and put him out there. But sideline to sideline, like you said, he's definitely a guy that can go in the Raiders. That's clearly a position of need, saying that they don't have any real linebackers under contract. Right? I mean, E-Rob, he's a free agent. Jamal Adams, free agent. Devin White, free agent. The only guys that they really have is Cody Lindenberg and Tommy Eichenberg. Eichenberg going into his third year, Cody Lindenberg going into his second year. So they definitely need to get some more linebackers for sure. And Anthony Hill Jr. is one that they can keep an eye on. I'll definitely ask the folks that are a lot smarter than me about Anthony Hill Jr. and just kind of get their thoughts on where he could possibly go in this upcoming draft. As a matter of fact, I wrote that name down, so thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Miller Rader. Said, what's up, Q? Hope you're staying warm in Indy. I went on a 3-mile walk this morning with the dogs, and here in Idaho, it was 24 degrees. So, yeah, a nice brisk walk for you, sure. LOL. Key is don't overlayer or you'll sweat. And that's what's worse than being cold weather is sweating in cold weather. Makes it twice as bad. Listen to Friday's podcast about the 3 Ps, and I wanted to add a 4th P, possession. To me, how they handle their possessions will tell you how well the first 3 Ps are operating. If you look at the last couple seasons, the Raiders have had bad play callers and protection, which resulted in 19 and 14 points per game. If Kubiak could dial it up with the play calls and Spytek could bring in the right offensive lineman, a couple more playmakers to go with Bowers and Genty, that should help maximize our possession. But maximizing our possession on offense is only part of the equation. Stealing possession from the other team is obviously crucial. Can the defense get off the field on third downs? Can they create turnovers? How they go about handling the defensive side of the ball is just as big, I think. And if they keep Max, get him some help. Defensive playmakers is just as critical as offensive ones. I hope he stays. Well, that's all I got. Congratulations, USA Hockey. USA, USA. Miller Raider out. Really good text, man. Thank you so much. And, yeah, 24 degrees. Whew. And it is cold here, too. Like I said, when I got off the plane, it was 25. So, yeah, definitely very, very cold. And I'm layered up, but I'm not super layered up. I'll definitely take your advice. Appreciate that. Yeah, the 3 Ps, play caller, playmakers, and protection, and not necessarily in that order. It was play callers, protection, and then playmakers. But, yeah, you're right. Possession is obviously another one that you can add to that, and defensive possessions is important as well. And that's real when you talk about creating turnovers, man. That's something that I've been harping on for so long. The Raiders just don't create turnovers, and it's so frustrating. They need to find a way to start coming up with more turnovers and get the ball back to the offense in a shorter field and give them opportunities to get, not cheap scores, but just quick scores, right? And all of a sudden they go from scoring 19 and 14 points per game to, 24. If you score 24 points per game, right, you have a chance to win more times than not. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Thanks for the advice, too. Up next, got a call from Damon in the 510. He's calling to talk about the ongoing saga of Maxx Crosby, and will he be with the Raiders or not? Here's Damon in the 510.
Q, what's going on? This is Damon from the 510. Hey, man, I'm just calling to talk about the Maxx Crosby situation. Sorry, I apologize for calling and talking about that. I'm sure everybody is upset. Irritated about hearing about that. But that's exactly why I'm calling. My thing is, with Maxx Crosby, the way I feel about it, if you're going to stay, yeah, we'd love to have you, welcome you with open arms, with hugs. Please stay, but if you go, if you want to go, man, just go, As Raider fans, give us something less to stress about. You see how our season went last year, and it wasn't too good, and now we stressing about that. So, help us out. Give us something less to stress about. Every off season, it seems like, I got to make some noise. I got to be the talk of the nation. Like, come on, man, help us out, because it's like this every off season. You make us stress. You're gonna stay, please stay. If not, just go, man. Somebody knows something, because ain't nobody saying nothing about it. And he gets irritated, and yeah, I want to stay. I'm tired of everybody talking about it and asking me, and I just want to win. Okay, just say I want to win here, or I want to go somewhere else and win. And we get it. Ain't nobody gonna be mad at you because you did a lot for us. Other than that, man, I say, and trade deadline, we pick up 3 offensive linemen some way, somehow. Let's pay for them. And then in the draft, I say we get 3 more offensive linemen, a receiver, and let's build around that defense. Everything else is a defense. But that's how I feel, man. Maybe in a trade deadline, too, we can also get a receiver, a number 1 guy. That'd be cool. But other than that, man, Maxx Crosby, man, don't give us something else to stress about. Help us out, brother. All right, Q. Appreciate what you and Ari do, man. Have a good day.
Damon, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, this week will be the week when you hear a lot of noise about Maxx Crosby's situation. There's going to be so much buzz. Now, I don't know if it's going to provide any clarity, but we're going to definitely hear a lot of buzz about Maxx Crosby. There's no doubt about that. Everyone who talks to me, I guarantee I already have people hitting me up like, hey, man, what day are you going to get here so we can sit down and talk about Max and if there's a chance for him to go to my team or whatever the case may be. His name is going to come up a ton this week. Trust and believe that. Thanks so much for the call. I do appreciate you. And, yeah, I mean, the reality is there's nothing anybody can do about it. You just got to figure out what it's going to be one way or the other. The team's got to sit down, and he's got to sit down, and they either decide to move on together, or they don't, one way or the other. So thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Up next, got a text from SoCal Raider. Says, Aloha Q, SoCal Raider, checking in from the 808. First, mahalo for starting my work week strong with your radio show, especially the interview with Super Bowl winning coach Gary Kubiak, who offered both a personal and professional insight into Klint as the new Raiders head coach. I've got a 3-part question. If Kubiak brings his quarterback-friendly system to Vegas, built on timing, play action, and defined reads, could that finally allow Aiden O'Connell, now entering the final year of his rookie deal, to flourish fully? And if the Silver and Black draft Fernando Mendoza, do you start rookie right away with O'Connell serving as a bridge or a high-end backup? Or does it make more sense to bring in a short-term veteran bridge quarterback through free agency, someone like Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, or another Kubiak-Shanahan system experienced veteran to stabilize the transition? Mahalo for everything you and Ari continue to bring to Raider Nation through quality football coverage. Go Raiders at SoCal Raider. Thanks so much for that. Appreciate you. And, yeah, I think Aiden O'Connell does have an opportunity. I think he's a bridge quarterback. I think he could be the backup as well, but I think he's definitely a guy that could be in line to start at the beginning of the season. I don't think there's any reason to bring in a quarterback from outside the building unless the Raiders just don't believe in Aiden O'Connell at all. Because I think he can start. I think he can start the season and give them an opportunity and allow Fernando Mendoza to learn what he needs to learn. And then when they feel like he's ready to take over as a starting quarterback, then they can put him in. But I don't think there's any pressure to get him in there right away. So I definitely believe that Aiden O'Connell will have an opportunity, but he's going to have to go out there and earn it, and he's going to have to hold on to it. That's the other thing. And maybe that's why they do go outside the building and bring someone else in, because Aiden O'Connell, every time he's got an opportunity, he's gotten hurt. And when he gets hurt, he's not available. So then all of a sudden you have to are you putting the rookie in right away? That's a possibility. So I guess they can go either way now that I put it out there like that. But thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. And we'll close things out with a call from Kevin in San Jose. He's calling to talk about the Raiders' hate, the convo around the quarterback, trade the pick, and other noise that we've been hearing this offseason. Here's Kevin in San Jose.
What is up, Q? This is Kevin from San Jose. I'm always awake when you drop the podcast on Apple Podcast, so I always listen to it around midnight. But yeah, man, I wanted to talk about how everyone just hates the Raiders. I mean, you don't want to let the outside noise affect you, but it's just so frustrating. And I do think we're going to win more than 3 games. And that honestly is a win in itself. And I don't know, maybe we'll win 5 or 6, but the Raiders hate is insane. I've been a fan since 2012, and NFL is just better with the Raiders in it. And I do believe this is the best constructed staff since 2016-ish or Jack Del Rio days. I believe so. It's just, I don't think we're going to trade the number 1 pick. I don't think we're going to do any of that. I think we're going to see a lot of change. But, what is it like for you, seeing all this Raiders hate? I know we're used to it, but isn't it frustrating? I feel like people don't do their research, like Jesse Merrick said. It's just a lazy take to trade back. And, we're not ready. All these are just lazy takes. So, what is your perspective about being a Raiders fan and always hearing that, we're never going to be good, we should just keep trading back, we don't deserve this? What are your thoughts on that? Thanks so much, Q and Ari. This is Kevin from San Jose. Bye.
Big Kev, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you, my man. And, yeah, it gets frustrating at times, right? Especially when everyone talks about, well, the Raiders aren't ready. The Raiders aren't ready. The Raiders aren't ready. Nobody picking at number 1 is ready. That's why they're picking at number 1. Like, that's the obvious. The Titans weren't ready for Cam Ward last year, but they got him because he's a quarterback, and you need him. The Bengals weren't ready for Joe Burrow, but they took him because he's the quarterback, and they need one, right? The Panthers weren't ready for Bryce Young, but they took him. You get it. Everyone that's picking number 1 is picking number 1 for a reason. They're not good. So that's the funny thing to me is just so many people are hell-bent on the Raiders not being ready to take Fernando Mendoza because they don't have an offensive line, they don't have weapons, they don't have this, that, and the third. But you can get that, and you could build that, and they could have a lot of that before the draft even happens. But yeah, that's the frustrating. As far as like not winning and all that, like winning cures all. If the Raiders find a way to make just win, baby, mean something as opposed to me just saying it at the end of the podcast, then that narrative will change quick, fast, and in a hurry, right? All of a sudden, the national perspective of the Raiders will completely change. You won't be talking about firing a head coach because you won't have to fire a head coach because you're winning. All you have to do, winning cures all. You find a way to win, and all of a sudden the narrative changes. So I'm not really worried about that. I just think it's pretty laughable when everyone says that the Raiders aren't ready to draft a quarterback at number 1. Yeah, no kidding. Nobody at number 1 is ready to do anything. Nobody at number 1 is very good. That's the reality of it. That's why they're picking at number 1. So that's going to do it for today's show. First day in Indy. We'll be here all week long. Looking forward to the coverage. Looking forward to being able to bring you a lot of really good coverage here on the show. We have the Raider Squad show, Lincoln Kennedy, Chantel Chan, and myself later on this morning. Of course, my local radio show and more. So we'll continue to bring you all day Raiders, and more Raiders. And we look forward to it. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. As always, Raider Nation, just win, baby.